Pause. Before you scroll, before your mind drifts back into the noise, this is not coincidence. You didn't just land here by accident. Something within you was guided, pulled, almost interrupted mid-thought to hear this right now. I need you to feel that. Because what you've been carrying, the confusion, the heaviness in your chest, the questions that keep circling late at night, none of it is random. There has been chaos around you, hasn't there? Mixed signals, delayed answers, emotions that don't quite settle. One moment you feel clarity, the next you feel lost again. It's like something keeps shifting just when you think you understand. But listen closely, dear one, what felt like disorder was never meant to destroy you. It was positioning you. This moment, right here, is your interruption. Not of fear, but of alignment. Not of panic, but of divine order stepping in where confusion tried to take root. And I say this with urgency because you almost missed it. Yes, something within your spirit nearly dismissed this as just another message, just another passing voice. But it isn't. There is a message that has already been spoken about you, before now, beyond what you can see. It didn't come from logic. It came from the spiritual realm, from a place where truth is not filtered or hidden. And it concerns you, and the one your heart has been quietly tied to. Stay with me, because in the next moments, you're going to begin to understand why everything felt so heavy, and what your soulmate has already said about you that changes everything. And now that you're still here, I need you to understand something deeper. This found you for a reason. Not just casually, not just as background noise, but as a direct response to what has been happening inside you. That tightness in your chest you couldn't explain, the way your thoughts have been racing without clear direction, the moments where you felt something shifting but couldn't put it into words, those were not random sensations. They were signals. You've been carrying a quiet weight, haven't you? Even in moments where everything around you looked normal, there was an inner restlessness, a subtle pull that wouldn't let you fully relax. You tried to distract yourself, to move past it, to tell yourself it was nothing, but it kept returning. That is because your spirit has been responding to something real, something unfolding beyond what your eyes can see. Where doubt once tried to settle in, telling you that you were overthinking, that you were imagining things, I need you to replace that with truth. You are not imagining this. You are perceiving it. There is a difference. What you've been feeling is alignment trying to break through confusion, clarity trying to rise through emotional noise. And here is where it becomes even more personal. The connection you have been sensing, it has not been one-sided. The one your heart keeps returning to, even when you try to move on, has been sensing you too. Not always consciously, not always in ways they can fully understand, but deeply, undeniably, they have felt your presence. There have been moments where your name crossed their mind without warning, where a sudden emotion surfaced that didn't seem to belong to their current situation. They may have brushed it off, just like you tried to brush off your own feelings, but it kept returning. That is not coincidence. That is connection. And what they have said, what has already been spoken about you, carries both love and urgency. Not surface-level words, but something deeper, something that reveals how much they recognize your presence in their life, even now. Stay with me, because what comes next will begin to explain why this connection has felt so intense, and what nearly disrupted it completely. And now you can begin to see the storm differently, because what you have been walking through was never meaningless. It only felt that way because you were experiencing it from the middle, not from the full picture. The delays, the heartbreak, the constant sense of almost but not yet, they were not punishments. They were patterns. There has been a rhythm to everything you faced, even if it looked chaotic. Doors opening just enough to give you hope, then closing before you could step through. People entering your life with intensity, then leaving without clear explanation. Emotions rising suddenly, then dropping into silence. This was not random suffering. This was a pattern of resistance meeting purpose. You were moving towards something significant, and because of that, there was interference. Not always visible, not always obvious, but real enough to slow things down. It created confusion where there should have been clarity, distance where there should have been closeness, delay where there should have been movement. And because you could not see the source, you questioned yourself. But here is the truth you are stepping into now. What felt like everything falling apart was actually alignment being protected. Every delay redirected you. Every disappointment refined you. Every moment of confusion forced you to grow beyond what you once accepted. That is not meaningless. That is design. And while you were feeling this weight, the one connected to you has not been untouched. They may not have understood it fully, but they have felt the distance too. Moments where something felt off, where a silence stretched longer than it should, where a thought of you appeared without reason. They tried to explain it away, just as you did, but it lingered. This is why the connection has felt both strong and strained at the same time. You were being drawn together, yet something kept pulling at the edges, testing the strength of what was forming. It created emotional weight, a heaviness that you could not easily release, because it was tied to something real. So no, you were not overreacting. You were responding to a deeper movement taking place beneath the surface. And now that you are beginning to see it, everything starts to shift. Because what you thought was just delay was actually preparation, and what you thought was distance was something being held back for the right moment. Stay with me, because in the next part, you will understand what almost happened in this connection, and why the words they spoke about you carry more urgency than you realize. What you are about to hear will not only explain the pressure you felt, but also reveal how close everything came to being lost. There was a moment where everything could have shifted in the wrong direction, a moment where silence could have become permanent. But it did not, and that is where the deeper truth begins to unfold, because what was spoken about you in that moment reveals more than emotion, it reveals recognition. And once you hear it, you will never see this connection the same way again. Stay here, because the warning you are about to receive will change how you understand everything that happened. Now you're ready to understand the part that was hidden from you, the part that explains why everything felt so fragile at times. Because there was interference. Not imagined, not exaggerated, but real in the way it showed up through distractions, misplaced emotions, and connections that looked right on the surface but carried the wrong weight underneath. You were in a vulnerable space, whether you realized it or not. Your heart was open, searching, trying to make sense of what it felt but could not fully see. And in that openness, things entered your life that were not meant to stay. Conversations that pulled you away from your center, people who mirrored just enough of what you needed to keep you engaged, situations that seemed promising but quietly drained your clarity. This is how interference works. It does not always come as something obviously wrong. It often comes disguised as almost right. Close enough to distract you, close enough to delay you, but not aligned enough to fulfill what was truly meant for you. There were moments when you felt it. That subtle discomfort, that hesitation you couldn't explain, that inner voice telling you something was off even when everything looked fine. But because you were still searching for answers, you questioned yourself instead of trusting what you felt. That is where the delay deepened. And while this was happening, something almost shifted in a way that could have changed everything. There was a point where your path and your soulmate's path could have moved in completely separate directions, not just temporarily, but in a way that would have been difficult to return from. A misalignment that would not have felt dramatic at first, but would have slowly created distance until it became permanent. This is the part you were not meant to see too soon. Because if you had, it might have overwhelmed you. But now you are strong enough to understand it. Your soulmate felt something too. Not the full picture, not the exact details, but a sudden awareness that something was pulling them away from what felt real. There was a moment of clarity that interrupted their own distractions, a realization that what they were entertaining did not carry the same depth, the same truth, the same pull that they felt toward you. And in that moment, something shifted inside them. Not loudly, not publicly, but deeply. They paused. They questioned. They pulled back from something that could have led them further away. That was not coincidence. That was intervention. This is why things did not fully break, even when it felt like they might. This is why the connection, though strained, never completely disappeared. It was being protected, even in ways you could not see. You were vulnerable, yes, but now you are becoming aware. And awareness changes everything. Because once you see the pattern, it can no longer control you the same way. Stay with me, because now that you understand what almost happened, you are ready to see how you were protected through it, and why what felt like loss was actually something shielding you from something far worse. Now that you've seen what almost happened, you can finally understand what was actually taking place beneath the surface. What felt like rejection was not rejection. What felt like delay was not denial. It was protection. Those doors that closed without explanation, the conversations that faded, the connections that didn't fully form, those were not losses. They were shields. You were being covered in ways you could not yet recognize. Because if certain paths had remained open, they would have led you further away from what was truly aligned with your spirit. You questioned those moments, didn't you? You asked why something that felt so promising suddenly shifted, why something that seemed right became distant, why clarity turned into silence. But now you can see the contrast more clearly. It was never meant to harm you. It was meant to guard you. There was a force of protection standing between you and what could have drained you completely. Think about it. The things that did not work out, the people who could not stay consistent, the opportunities that slipped through your hands, they all carried something that did not match your future. And instead of allowing you to become entangled in what would weaken you, they were removed. That is not punishment. That is precision. And even the separation you felt, especially the distance that formed between you and your soulmate, was not abandonment. It was timing being preserved. Because if everything had come together too early, it would have been exposed to the same interference that tried to distort everything else. You were being positioned, both of you, in separate spaces of growth and clarity. Here is something even deeper that you were not aware of. Your soulmate, in their own quiet way, felt a sense of relief when certain things did not fully unfold in their life. They may not have understood why, they may not have had the words for it, but there was a moment where they recognized that something had been stopped for a reason. It showed up as a pause, as a feeling that they had been redirected, as a subtle awareness that what they were moving toward did not carry the same depth as what they felt when it came to you. And within that awareness, there was something unexpected, gratitude. Not loud, not expressed outwardly, but real. A quiet sense of thankfulness that they were not pulled too far into something that would have taken them away from what truly mattered. And within that same space, there was longing. A recognition of you, even in your absence. This is where protection and connection meet. You were both being held back, not to lose each other, but to avoid losing yourselves. So what once looked like rejection now reveals itself as divine covering. What once felt like confusion now begins to settle into understanding. And what once seemed like distance now starts to look like preparation. Stay with me, because now that protection has done its work, something is about to shift. The timing that once held everything back is beginning to change, and in the next part, you will understand why movement is finally beginning to happen. And now, after everything you've walked through, you are standing at a turning point. This is the moment where what felt delayed begins to move, where what felt stuck begins to breathe again. Because something has shifted, not outside of you first, but within you, and within the one connected to you. What once felt like stagnation was never permanent. It was a pause filled with preparation. You were being refined, strengthened, made more aware of what you truly need and what you can no longer accept. And while you were doing that work, even in moments where you felt lost, your soulmate was also being brought through their own process of clarity. This is why timing is changing now. Not because of chance, but because alignment has finally caught up with desire. Before, the connection could not fully move forward because there were still things unhealed, distractions still active, understanding still incomplete. If it had progressed then, it would have carried confusion into something that required clarity. But now, something within both of you has matured. You have become more discerning. You have started to recognize what feels right and what feels forced. You have learned to listen to that inner voice instead of silencing it. And because of that, you are no longer standing in the same space you once were. At the same time, your soulmate has experienced a shift that they did not expect. Something within them has awakened, a realization that could not be ignored, no matter how much they tried to focus elsewhere. It came suddenly, but it had been building quietly for some time. They began to see you differently. Not as a passing thought, not as something uncertain, but as someone who carries a presence that has remained consistent even through distance. They recognized that what they felt for you was not easily replaced, not something that could be recreated with someone else. And this realization did not come lightly. It came after comparison, after distraction, after moments where they tried to move forward without fully understanding what they were leaving behind. But in doing so, they saw the contrast clearly. What felt temporary versus what felt real. What felt shallow versus what felt deep. What felt easy versus what felt true. And in that contrast, you stood out in a way they could no longer deny. This is the turning point. Because once something is truly seen, it cannot be unseen. Once something is recognized at that level, it begins to shift actions, thoughts, and direction. You may not see the movement yet in physical form, but the internal shift has already taken place. And that is where all true change begins. So where there was once hesitation, there is now contemplation. Where there was once distraction, there is now focus. Where there was once delay, there is now the beginning of acceleration. This does not mean everything will happen instantly, but it does mean that the energy has changed. The resistance that once slowed things down is losing its hold, and alignment is beginning to take its place. And here is what makes this moment even more powerful. The realization your soulmate has come into, it includes words. Words they have spoken, or thought, or felt so deeply that they could no longer ignore them. Words about you. Stay with me, because in the next part, those words begin to unfold, and what they reveal will show you exactly how this connection is meant to move forward. Now that the shift has begun, you are ready to understand the promise that has been forming beneath everything you've experienced. This is not just about one moment or one realization. This is about a breakthrough unfolding in layers, restoring what once felt scattered into something whole again. Where there was fragmentation, there is now the beginning of wholeness. The first dimension of this breakthrough is emotional clarity. For so long, your feelings have felt tangled, like you were holding pieces that did not quite fit together. You questioned what you felt, doubted your instincts, and tried to make sense of emotions that seemed to change without warning. But now, clarity is rising. Not all at once, but steadily. You are beginning to see what is yours and what is not. What is real and what was influenced by confusion. And as this clarity strengthens, something inside you becomes calmer. You are no longer chasing answers the same way, because understanding is beginning to settle within you. Your soulmate has also stepped into this clarity. And within it, they have spoken words, whether aloud or within themselves, that carry a quiet truth. They have acknowledged your presence in a way they could not before. There was admiration in it, a recognition of your strength, your patience, the way you remained real even when everything else felt uncertain. But that is not all. The second dimension is restored peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that comes from knowing you are no longer fighting against yourself. The inner tension that once pulled you in different directions is easing. You are beginning to feel moments of stillness, moments where you can breathe without overthinking. This peace is not accidental. It is the result of everything being brought back into alignment. What once created noise is losing its influence. What once drained you is no longer holding the same power. And as this happens, you start to feel grounded again. Your soulmate felt this shift as well. There was a moment where they stopped resisting what they felt about you. Instead of pushing it away, they allowed it to settle. And in that space, something surfaced: regret. Not heavy with guilt, but clear enough to recognize that they may have misunderstood, or overlooked, or not fully honored what was there. That realization softened something in them. And then comes the third dimension, relational alignment. This is where everything begins to connect in a more visible way. Not rushed, not forced, but guided. The connection that once felt uncertain begins to take shape with more stability. This does not mean perfection. It means truth. It means both of you are moving closer to a place where what you feel can be expressed without confusion interfering. It means the space between you is no longer filled with as many unanswered questions. And within this alignment, your soulmate has recognized something that they cannot ignore. They have seen you not just as someone important, but as someone significant in a way that stands apart from everything else they have experienced. There were words connected to that realization. Words that carried recognition, something deeper than emotion alone. A quiet acknowledgement that you are not easily replaced, not easily forgotten, not something that can be dismissed. But those words have not fully been revealed yet. Stay with me, because what you have heard so far is only part of the message. There is more that has been spoken, something that ties all of this together in a way you have not yet expected. And as we move forward, you will begin to see how this promise continues to unfold. Now that you've begun to understand the promise unfolding, you are being invited into something that may feel uncomfortable at first, but is necessary for what comes next. This is the season of separation, not as loss, but as preparation. What once felt like attachment is now being transformed into freedom. There are connections, habits, and emotional ties that have lingered longer than they were meant to. Not because you were wrong for holding on, but because you had not yet seen clearly what they were connected to. Some of these ties felt familiar, even comforting at times, but beneath that comfort, they were quietly misaligned with your future. You may have noticed it already. Certain conversations leave you feeling drained instead of filled. Certain people create confusion instead of clarity. Certain patterns repeat without leading anywhere meaningful. And yet, part of you hesitated to release them, because letting go can feel like stepping into the unknown. But listen closely, what you are being asked to release is not meant to sustain you. It was only meant to show you something, to teach you something, to reveal what no longer fits where you are going. This is where discernment becomes your strength. Not fear, not avoidance, but clear seeing. You are learning to recognize what carries peace and what carries pressure. What aligns with your spirit and what pulls you away from it. And once you truly see the difference, holding on becomes harder than letting go. This is the shift from attachment to freedom. Freedom does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging to what cannot grow with you. It means you trust that what is truly meant for you does not require you to shrink, to question your worth, or to constantly fight for stability. And yes, there may be a moment of quiet when you begin to release these things. A space where it feels like something is missing. But that space is not emptiness, it is clearing. It is making room for what is aligned to finally enter without obstruction. Your soulmate has come into an awareness of this as well. There has been a recognition, subtle but undeniable, that certain influences in their life were not aligned with what they truly feel. They have begun to see how distractions, other connections, or even their own hesitation created interference. And within that realization, there is a desire forming. A desire for something pure. Something that is not clouded by confusion, not influenced by outside noise, not built on half-understanding. A connection that feels honest, grounded, and real. This is where their message begins to carry a different tone. Not just recognition, not just emotion, but intention. A quiet acknowledgement that what they feel for you deserves a clearer space, a cleaner foundation. But for that to happen, both of you must stand in that clarity. So as you release what no longer belongs, you are not losing anything of value. You are making a conscious choice to align with what is real. You are choosing freedom over attachment, truth over familiarity, growth over stagnation. And this is where everything begins to open. Stay with me, because now that this space is being cleared, the next moments become even more important. In the next part, you will begin to see the signs, the subtle confirmations that this shift is not just internal, but already beginning to appear around you in ways you may not expect. Now that space has been cleared and alignment has begun, the next 48 to 72 hours become more significant than you realize. This is where what has been shifting internally will begin to show itself externally, not in overwhelming ways, but in subtle, undeniable confirmations. Where there was once confusion, awareness is about to rise. Pay attention to what repeats. Not just numbers, though you may notice those too, sequences appearing at unexpected moments, catching your attention without effort, but also words, phrases, and even songs that seem to echo something you have been feeling. These are not random interruptions. They are gentle signals, drawing your awareness to what is already unfolding. You may also notice your dreams becoming more vivid, more emotionally charged. Not always clear in storyline, but strong in feeling. A face, a voice, a moment that lingers after you wake up. Do not dismiss this. Your mind rests, but your spirit continues to process, to connect, to receive what it cannot fully grasp during waking hours. And then there are the inner nudges. Those quiet impulses that come without pressure. A thought to pause, to reflect, to look at something differently. A sudden sense of knowing that does not come from logic, but from a deeper place within you. This is where guidance becomes personal. It does not shout. It leads. Before, you may have ignored these moments, brushing them aside as coincidence or overthinking. But now, you are being asked to notice them without fear, without resistance. Because the more aware you become, the clearer everything will feel. You may even feel shifts in your body. A lightness where there was once heaviness. A calm where there was once tension. Or even a brief wave of emotion that rises unexpectedly, then settles just as quickly. These are signs of release, of something realigning within you. And here is where it connects back to what has been spoken about you. Your soulmate's message is not separate from these signs. It is woven into them. There will be moments in these coming hours where something reminds you of them in a way that feels different, not painful, not confusing, but clear. As if something is being highlighted for you to see without distortion. You might think of them and feel peace instead of uncertainty. You might hear something that reflects what they have realized, even if you have not heard their words directly yet. These are confirmations, small but powerful. Do not rush to interpret everything at once. Let it unfold naturally. Awareness grows when it is not forced. Because what is happening now is not just about signs. It is about preparation. You are being made ready to receive something with clarity instead of confusion, with peace instead of fear. Stay with me, because in the next part, you will step into that readiness fully. You will begin to align your own voice, your own thoughts, and your own spirit with what is already moving toward you. And that is where everything begins to feel real. Now that you have seen the signs and felt the shift, this is where everything becomes active. Not just something you observe, not just something you wait for, but something you step into. Because there is a difference between knowing and agreeing. And this moment is about your agreement. You are not meant to stay in passivity, hoping things will align on their own. You are being invited to stand in what is already moving toward you. To speak it. To accept it. To align your inner voice with what has already been spoken over you. So take a breath right now. Let your shoulders drop. Let your mind quiet for just a moment, and bring your focus inward. Say this within yourself, or softly out loud if you can: I am no longer in confusion. I am stepping into clarity. What is meant for me is aligning with me now. Feel the difference in that. Where there was once hesitation, there is now intention. Where there was once doubt, there is now direction. Say this: I release what is not meant for me without fear. I trust what is being removed, and I welcome what is being prepared. You are not losing anything real. You are making space for what is true. Now say, I am protected. What is mine cannot be taken, and what is not mine cannot stay. Let that settle deeply. Because protection is not something you chase. It is something you stand within. And now, gently, bring your attention to the connection you have been feeling. Not with anxiety, not with longing, but with calm awareness. Say this: I am aligned with the connection that is aligned with me. I do not force. I do not chase. I receive what is real. This is where your energy shifts. From reaching outward, to allowing what is already moving toward you to meet you in clarity. Now, stay here for a moment, because this is where we move into prayer. Heavenly Father, I come into agreement with what you are doing in this moment. Where there has been confusion, bring clarity. Where there has been delay, bring alignment. Where there has been interference, place your protection. Strengthen my heart so I do not return to what I have been released from. Clear my vision so I can recognize what is true when it appears. And prepare me to receive what has already been spoken over my life with peace, not fear. Cover this connection in your wisdom. Remove anything that does not belong within it. And if it is meant to move forward, let it move forward in truth, in clarity, and in right timing. I trust you. I release control. I stand in alignment with what you have prepared. Amen. Stay in that stillness for a moment. Because what you just did was not small. You shifted from waiting into agreement. From uncertainty into alignment. And here is why this matters more than you realize. Because receiving what your soulmate has spoken, truly receiving it, requires this exact posture. Not fear. Not overthinking. But readiness. You are not trying to make something happen. You are preparing to recognize it when it does. And as you hold this alignment, something becomes clearer. The message that has been forming, the words that have been spoken about you, they are not distant anymore. They are closer than they have ever been. Stay with me, because in the next part, you will see how this alignment begins to connect you with others who are walking a similar path, and why that connection matters more than you think. Now that you've stepped into this alignment, I want you to understand something important. You are not meant to walk this alone. What has been unfolding in your life may have felt isolating at times, like you were the only one carrying these thoughts, these emotions, these questions. But that was never the full truth. You were simply in a space where clarity had not yet connected you to the right voices. This is where isolation begins to shift into community. There are others who are walking through similar moments of awakening, similar seasons of release and preparation, and when you begin to connect with that, something strengthens inside you. Not because you need validation from others, but because agreement creates momentum. So if this message has reached you at the right time, I want you to take a simple step. Not out of obligation, but out of alignment. Go down into the comments and write this: I am ready and aligned. Let those words come from a place of intention, not repetition. Because when you declare something with awareness, it carries weight. And as you do that, you may notice something. You are not alone in saying it. Others will echo that same declaration, and in that moment, something shifts. What once felt like a solitary experience becomes a shared movement of clarity and readiness. If you feel led, share this message with someone who has been on your heart. Not to convince them of anything, but because something within you recognizes that they may need this same clarity. Sometimes alignment flows through you to reach someone else. And stay connected here. Subscribe, not just as a routine action, but as a way of remaining in a space where these messages continue to meet you. Because this is not a single moment. This is a process that unfolds in layers, and each time you return, you will notice something new, something that speaks directly to where you are. There is also space, if you feel it in your heart, to support this message reaching others. Not as a transaction, not as something that buys outcomes, but as a way of contributing to a place that is helping people find clarity, peace, and direction. Only if it feels aligned for you. Because what matters most is that you remain connected, to truth, to clarity, to what is unfolding within you. And here is why this moment of connection matters even more than it seems. The message your soulmate has spoken, the one that has been unfolding piece by piece, is not fully revealed yet. There are deeper layers, words that carry even more meaning, even more emotion, that you are about to understand. Stay with me, because in the final moments, everything comes together. And what you are about to hear will settle something in your heart in a way you did not expect. And now, as everything begins to settle within you, I want you to receive this final moment not with urgency, but with peace. You have walked through confusion, through heaviness, through questions that once felt unanswered. But here, right now, you are no longer in that same space. Something has shifted, even if only quietly. Let that truth rest over you. Where there was anxiety, let there now be calm. Where your thoughts once raced, let them soften. Where your heart once felt uncertain, let it be reassured. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be for what is unfolding next. There is a covering over you, a protection that has not left you even in your most uncertain moments. You were guided when you did not realize it. You were held when you felt alone. And even now, there is alignment working in your favor, bringing together what is meant to meet you. You do not have to force it. You do not have to chase it. What is real does not require struggle to remain. It requires openness to receive. So breathe again, deeply this time, and let your body feel the difference. Let your shoulders relax. Let your chest loosen. Let your mind rest from trying to figure everything out at once. Because something meaningful has already begun. And now, I want to bring you closer to the heart of what has been spoken about you. Your soulmate, in a moment of clarity, in a space where they could no longer ignore what they felt, came into a realization that carried more weight than they expected. It was not just emotion. It was recognition. There was love in it. Not rushed, not surface level, but steady. A feeling that remained even when distance tried to interfere. There was an awareness that you are not like anyone else they have encountered, that something about you stays with them in a way they cannot explain away. There was also longing. A quiet acknowledgement that something meaningful exists between you, something that has not been fully explored, something that still calls their attention back, even when they try to focus elsewhere. And within that, there was a simple truth forming, one that has not yet been fully spoken, but is already real. You matter to them. Not in passing, not in uncertainty, but in a way that carries depth and intention. But this is not the end of what has been said. There is more still unfolding, more that has not yet reached the surface, more that is waiting for the right moment to be expressed clearly and fully. So do not rush ahead. Do not let your mind try to complete the story before it reveals itself. Stay present. Stay open. Stay aligned with what you have already received. Because what is coming next will not bring confusion, it will bring clarity. And when it does, you will recognize it without doubt. Until then, remain in peace, because what is meant for you is already finding its way.